You ever feel like you're just swimming in information, like totally overloaded,
Oh, absolutely.
but you're still thirsty for, actual understanding?
Yeah, like you want the real wisdom distilled down.
Exactly. The cheat codes. Well, that's kind of what we're doing today on the deep dive.
Well,
Consider this your rapid download to being pretty well informed on something specific.
indeed. And our subject today is, well, it's a really fascinating work. Goldot, the Doctrine of Truth, Simplified.
Goldot. Got it.
And just so we're clear, yeah, it's pronounced Goldot.
Goldot. Okay. Now, the simplified version, it's not just something new, right? It has deeper origins.
Oh, absolutely. It pulls directly from the original Goldot, the Doctrine of Truth, Guidebook of Life, the Science of Man.
Wow, that's a title.
Right. Published way back in 1976 by Louis E. Cook and Junko Yasui. And it was monumental, over 1,000
A
pages.
1,000 pages.
Yeah, exploring really deep esoteric knowledge. The whole aim was like transforming human consciousness.
Okay, 1,000 pages on transforming consciousness. That is ambitious.
Totally.
So, why the simplified version then? What was the need?
Well, as you can imagine, the original, while packed with insight, was just really long and complex, a tough read for most people.
I bet.
And over time, it got pretty rare, hard to find. So this modern take, it tries to pull out the core wisdom.
The heart of it.
Exactly, the heart of Goldot.
Yeah.
But presented in a way that's, well, accessible, relevant for someone looking for answers today.
Clearer, maybe.
Right.
More concise.
Yeah, clear, concise, but without losing that essential depth. You could almost think of it like a Blinkist version, but for a really profound spiritual text.
Okay, gotcha. So our mission today then is to kind of extract those key nuggets from this Goldot simplified.
That's the plan.
We want to really grasp the main ideas, especially the ones about like who we are, maybe where we came from.
And our potential, yeah. Like what we could become.
Right, our potential.
Precisely. And this simplified edition, it's structured into 7 volumes. Starts with Genesis, moves all the way to Revelation.
7 volumes still sounds like a lot.
It does, but they're much more focused.
Yeah.
We'll be concentrating on those foundational concepts, mainly from the early volumes, to give you a really solid grip on the core doctrine.
Okay, sounds good. Let's unpack this then. The original Goldot. Where did it come from? What was its like fundamental aim?
Well, the original Goldot was this amazing synthesis, really. It wasn't just, spirituality or just science.
Mix things up.
Exactly. It integrated what the authors called spiritual science, things like metaphysical law, but also practical methods for self-realization.
Okay.
And it was really deeply inspired by, well, the world's great spiritual traditions, all of them, basically.
So it was drawing from a really rich, diverse history of thought.
Totally. And that structure, those original 7 volumes you mentioned.
Yeah, Genesis, Art of Living.
Right? Physical man, mental man, spiritual man, new dimensions, revelation. That whole structure was designed to give a really complete framework.
Comprehensive.
Yeah, comprehensive. Understanding all parts of human existence from our absolute beginnings to our, highest potential.
And what's the main idea? The thread running through it all?
The core message, and this is something you hear in so many wisdom traditions, right?
Huh?
It's that truth isn't really something out there you have to find.
Okay.
It's more like an internal reality, something inside us that we need to remember.
Remember, not discover.
That's interesting. It is. It really echoes what so many great masters have said, pointing to that divine spark within.
Right. But with such a massive original book, it makes total sense why they'd want a simplified version. Especially now.
Absolutely. The sheer length and depth of the original, it was just a barrier for a lot of people.
Yeah, daunting.
And it got so rare, it was almost like lost knowledge for a while.
Yeah.
But the people behind the simplified version, they felt that now in our time.
With everything going on.
Exactly. With what they see as this growing global awareness, this kind of hunger for truth beyond just, material stuff. This wisdom is needed more than ever.
So this Goldot simplified is meant as a doorway then for people who might be put off by the original.
Precisely. It's like a gateway to the essence of Goldot.
Yeah.
It keeps those fundamental teachings, but puts them in a format that's much easier to grasp and actually use in your life.
More approachable.
Yeah, it speaks more directly maybe,
Yeah.
without getting bogged down in super complex language.
And it's not just pulling ideas out of thin air, is it? It connects to a bigger picture.
Oh, definitely. The simplified version makes it really clear that they're building on foundations laid by, generations of wisdom keepers.
Right.
The original Goldot itself was deeply rooted in that whole lineage of spiritual traditions going back millennia.
Okay.
And in making this simplified version, the authors deliberately went back to those same core sources to make sure the integrity, the purity, the truth was maintained.
That definitely adds weight to it, knowing it's part of this long tradition. Now, Goldot Simplified also mentions something called a great return of esoteric knowledge. What's that about?
Yeah, that's quite interesting. They bring up historical context, like the burning of the Library of Alexandria.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They see that not just as, losing books, but as a symbol of knowledge being deliberately suppressed.
Repress knowledge that could have helped us.
That's the idea. Knowledge that might have led humanity to a deeper understanding of ourselves, the universe.
Hmm.
They talk about how suppressing mystical traditions, misinterpreting sacred texts, it all led to a kind of collective amnesia.
So this loss of ancient wisdom actually affected how we see things now.
That's the argument they make, yeah.
Yeah.
And Goldot Simplified is presented almost as a reemergence of that wisdom.
Coming back now.
Coming back now, exactly. At a time in history when maybe, just maybe, humanity is more ready to actually hear it.
Like the knowledge was just waiting for the right moment.
Precisely. It positions the book itself as a tool for us to understand ourselves better, our purpose, and that feeling of connection to something infinite.
Right.
It's meant to kind of reassure you that you're not just this isolated speck,
Yeah.
not powerless.
Okay, that's a really good frame for understanding its purpose. So let's dive into Volume I then, Genesis, the beginning of truth. Where does Goldot Simplified say it all starts?
Right. So chapter 1 jumps straight into the origin of creation. And the central concept here is the One.
The One.
Yeah. Described as pure consciousness, infinite potential, like an eternal presence that was there before time, before form, before anything we can really grasp.
So it wasn't like a Big Bang moment, necessarily, more like a continuous thing.
Exactly. The universe isn't seen as a one-off creation event. It's more like this eternal rhythm, expansion, contraction, like breath of God, you could say.
And this idea of one ultimate source. See that elsewhere, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The text itself points this out. Ancient cultures, different philosophies, they all had names for this same basic force.
Right.
Well, Brahman in Hinduism, the Taoan in Taoism, the one in various philosophical schools, or just the source, the names change. But the idea of a primary intelligence behind everything, that's remarkably consistent.
Okay. And how do we fit in us as humans?
Well, Goldot Simplified really emphasizes we're not separate from this cosmic dance.
Yeah.
We're part of it, intrinsically.
Right.
Our individual consciousness is presented as a reflection, like a little spark of that huge universal consciousness. Our whole being is woven into this infinite creation.
Wow.
And here's a really key point they make. The book suggests we weren't created at some point in time.
We weren't.
No. The idea is we've always existed in some form or another.
We've always been. That definitely challenges the usual story.
It does. And it ties into another idea, that the physical universe itself isn't just random stuff.
Okay.
According to Goldot, it's structured, based on sacred geometric principles. Yeah, like patterns, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, things that suggest an underlying order, almost like a divine blueprint.
Huh.
They mention how ancient civilizations,
Yeah.
Egyptians, Vedic sages, Hermetic philosophers, they recognize this link between math and the cosmos.
Yeah.
Think about like the spiral in a shell.
The golden ratio, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Goldot sees that as evidence of this intelligent design underneath everything.
So even the physical world has this hidden structure, this intelligence.
Precisely. And building on that, our own consciousness, it's not just stuck inside our heads.
Right.
It's part of a much bigger field of intelligence, stretching across dimensions, across time, way beyond what we normally perceive. The book talks about the spark of divinity inside each of us. That's our direct link, our connection to this huge cosmic field of awareness.
So that feeling some people get of being connected to everything, that's actually real, according to this.
According to this perspective, yes. It's a fundamental truth. And waking up to that truth means realizing that at our core, we're eternal beings. Yeah. Just having a temporary ride in this physical form.
Yeah.
And the feeling that we're totally separate.
Yeah.
That's ultimately, well, an illusion.
Okay, wow. That's the origin story. Now, the next chapter in Genesis is the science of man. What does Goldot Simplified say about, well, us, our nature?
Right. The very first thing it stresses is we're not just physical bodies.
Okay.
The body is more like a temporary vehicle,
Right.
An instrument, you could say, designed to hold our divine essence.
The spark we just talked about.
Exactly. Our true nature, in this view, is spiritual, a radiant piece of that eternal flame.
And our lives, they're not just this one shot.
No. The book brings up the idea, which you find in lots of mystical traditions, that life isn't a one-off. It's an ongoing journey for the soul.
Evolution of the soul.
Yeah, unfolding across countless lifetimes. And this whole journey is really about remembering, gradually waking up to who we truly are, that divine nature that's always been there.
So we keep learning, keep evolving over huge stretches of time.
Exactly. And to understand this better, Goldot talks about 3 interconnected layers of being human: physical, mental, and spiritual.
Okay.
And they're not separate things. They're constantly interacting. Real mastery in life, it suggests, comes from getting these 3 into harmony.
Balancing them.
Balancing them, yeah. Allowing a smooth flow between the seen and unseen parts of ourselves.
And the physical body itself,
Hmm.
it's more than just biology.
Oh, absolutely. It's presented as a sacred temple,
Yeah.
intricately designed for this divine consciousness.
Right.
The book points to energy centers in the body, the chakras, as being like crucial gateways
Gateways between what?
between the material world and the spiritual realms. When these centers are aligned, working properly, it helps us access higher awareness. It bridges those worlds. They even mention ancient practices, breathwork, sacred movement, fasting, as ways people tried to harmonize these energies, like the ancient Egyptians doing energy work in their temples.
So taking care of our physical health actually has a deeper spiritual side to it.
Precisely. And something else it reframes is suffering.
Okay, how so?
Instead of just seeing it as bad, Goldot suggests suffering can be a powerful teacher, an opportunity for real growth.
A teacher.
Yeah. The challenges aren't meant to break us, but to refine us, to kind of nudge the soul towards remembering its own strength. Without those tough times, maybe the soul wouldn't be pushed to look deeper, you know?
That definitely offers a different perspective on hardship. So how do we actually use this understanding day to day?
Well, the book really emphasizes conscious living, being mindful about what we feed our body and soul.
Paying attention.
Paying attention, exactly. Moving our bodies in ways that strengthen and align them. Making time for stillness, for reflection. It's about actively taking part in this remembering process.
Right.
And here's a powerful idea they introduce. Try to see the divine in everyone you meet.
In everyone.
Yeah. Shift your perspective so that every interaction is like a recognition of that shared divinity. They say that's a way to lift not just yourself, but the whole collective consciousness.
Wow, that's a practice to think about. Okay, let's move to chapter 3, the nature of truth. What does Goldot Simplified mean by truth?
It's pretty direct on this. It says truth is not subjective.
Not subjective, so it doesn't change based on what I think.
Exactly. It doesn't shift with opinions or beliefs or what culture says. It exists as this unchanging reality. Our minds, with all their conditioning and limits, they can distort how we see reality.
Sure.
But the underlying truth itself stays constant.
So we're not all just making up our own truths.
That's the claim, yeah. So the path to truth isn't about creating something new. It's more like a process of subtraction.
Subtraction.
Yeah. Peeling away the false stuff, false identities, wrong beliefs, baseless fears, all the things that cloud our view.
Okay.
When you remove everything that isn't true, what's left? Pure awareness, a direct, unclouded experience of reality right inside you.
And this direct experience, people have talked about this before, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely. Goldot points out that great teachers throughout history describe this same fundamental experience, just using different words.
Like?
Well, the Buddha talked about enlightenment. Jesus mentioned the kingdom of heaven. Yogis describe self-realization. The labels change with the culture, the philosophy.
Right.
But the core essence, knowing yourself as that divine presence, the formless within the form that's the same.
So how do we actually get to that direct experience, practically?
The book really stresses discernment, learning to tell the difference between what's real and what's just illusion.
Okay, discernment. How?
It requires deep self-inquiry, actively questioning the beliefs you just soaked up, breaking free from societal programming, and really prioritizing your own direct experience over just accepting what others tell you.
So less secondhand information, more firsthand experience.
Exactly. And practices like meditation, journaling, contemplation, they're presented as essential tools for this.
Makes sense.
And truth isn't just an inner thing, it's also about alignment. Yeah. The more we align our thoughts, our words, our actions with this fundamental truth, the more clarity and harmony we experience in our lives.
So it's not just thinking about it, it's living it.
Precisely. Living truthfully means being honest with yourself, with others,
Mm.
acting with integrity, making sure what you say and do matches your deepest wisdom.
That takes courage sometime.
It really does, especially when the world often seems to value illusion or just fitting in. But Goldot says choosing truth is the path to real freedom.
Okay.
And embodying truth, it's more than just agreeing intellectually, which means consciously letting go of attachments to falsehoods, the things that just feed the ego and keep us stuck in a distorted view.
Right. Okay, one more chapter for this first dive. Chapter 4, The Journey of the Soul. What does Goldot Simplified say about our soul's path?
It paints the soul's journey as this infinite unfolding, a huge odyssey of consciousness expanding through time and space.
Like a grand adventure.
Kind of, yeah. Each life we live is like a chapter in that story, a chance to learn more, overcome stuff, and get closer to that ultimate unity with the divine.
Yep.
But, and this is important, the book emphasizes the real journey isn't out there in the world, it's an internal journey.
Internal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A return to remembering our inherent oneness with the source.
Yeah.
It's always been there.
And what guides this journey? What are the, rules of the road?
Goldot highlights a few key things: karma, reincarnation, and soul evolution.
Okay, karma. We hear that word a lot.
Right. Here, it's presented simply as cause and effect. Our actions, thoughts, intentions, they shape our future experiences.
Not punishment.
Not punishment or reward, no. More like learning and growth.
Yeah.
Every experience, good or bad, is seen as a reflection of past choices and an invitation to evolve beyond them.
And reincarnation fits in how?
That's the process where the soul comes back into physical life again and again.
Yeah.
Each time offers new chances for lessons, for resolving that past karma, for expanding awareness, and ultimately for fulfilling some kind of divine purpose until we reach self-realization.
So we keep coming back to learn and grow.
That's the core idea, and we're not left totally alone on this path. Goldot mentions various spiritual disciplines that can help.
Like what?
Things like meditation to access higher states, selfless service karma yoga to purify the heart, devotion bhakti yoga for connecting with the divine, and seeking wisdom jnana yoga to see past illusion.
And we're all doing this together, in a way.
Absolutely. The soul's journey isn't isolated. It's deeply connected to the collective journey of everyone.
Right.
When one person raises their consciousness, it kind of ripples out. It helps lift the whole web of life.
Mm.
The book mentions figures like Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu, Yogananda, not as gods to worship necessarily.
But as guides.
Exactly. As guides who came to remind us of the divinity that's already inside each of us.
So, practically speaking, how does knowing about the soul's journey help us right now?
Well, again, Goldot brings it back to conscious living, making mindful choices daily.
Right.
Practices like forgiveness, which helps release old burdens. Cultivating gratitude, which shifts our focus. Acts of compassion and service, which expand our hearts.
Okay.
And understanding this long journey of the soul, it can also help lessen the fear of death.
How so?
Because death isn't seen as the absolute end, it's more like a transition, a return to a non-physical state where the soul can kind of integrate the wisdom it gained.
A transition, not an end.
Right. Ultimately, the whole soul's journey is pictured as moving towards divine union, remembering its own divinity, not searching for something outside itself.
Okay, so just to quickly wrap up our initial look at Goldot Simplified, we've touched on creation coming from the One.
That eternal source.
Our nature as spiritual beings remembering who we are.
Right, on that long journey.
The idea of truth as this constant inner reality.
To be experienced directly.
And the soul's evolution through karma and different paths, it all feels very connected.
It really is. These first volumes, they lay this foundation, highlighting how all consciousness is linked, how reality is much bigger than just the physical.
Right.
And the incredible potential for waking up that's inside every single one of us.
It definitely gives you a lot to chew on. So for you listening, maybe just consider how might understanding your eternal nature, your connection to something bigger, how might that actually shift your day-to-day view, your actions?
Yeah, that's a great point.
What false beliefs, maybe, could you start to question in your own life after hearing just these initial ideas?
And look, if any of this sparked your interest, really sparked your curiosity,
Mhm.
we definitely encourage you to explore Goldot Simplified further.
Or related wisdom traditions.
Exactly. There's a whole universe of understanding out there, just waiting.